Number one, asking the Now let's begin. Number one, asking the impossible. Does every little thing feel impossible, like this overwhelming hurdle that you'll never overcome? This destructive mindset is a hallmark of emotional exhaustion, because nothing fades faster than your motivation. When you're feeling fatigue, positivity and enthusiasm disappear. So it's incredibly difficult to inspire yourself. That's why you feel lazy, defeated, and intimidated by almost everything on your to-do list. In general, productivity is a good indicator of whether or not you're emotionally exhausted. If your motivation is getting worse and worse, well, there's a good chance that you're not feeling like yourself. Number two, emotional sensitivity. How does emotional exhaustion leave you feeling more sensitive? Yeah, I know it sounds backwards, but exhaustion actually amplifies some emotions like sadness, loneliness, and frustration. All right, let's say you're watching a heart-wrenching movie. Normally, you aren't a fan of tearjerkers, but for some reason, this movie has you crying your eyes out. Well, why is that? Because you're overflowing with negative emotions, and it doesn't take much to get you going. Anything from a sappy movie to a story on the news can send you into a downward spiral. Now, of course, you're not really crying over that movie. That negativity is coming from somewhere else in your life. It could be work, a stressful relationship, or a new challenge hanging over your head. If you're emotionally exhausted, you don't have the self-control to hold back anymore. So all that negativity comes spilling out, whether you like it or not. Number three, sensory dullness. Have you noticed that food just doesn't taste as good? You'll eat your favorite meals or smell your favorite flavors, but they just aren't as pleasant as they usually are. Emotional exhaustion may be the reason why. When you're drained, you have a lower capacity for positive emotions. Things like pleasure and comfort don't come naturally, but you need those positive emotions to enjoy the things you love. That's what makes your favorites your favorites. They influence or improve your mood in some way, but if you're exhausted, even your favorite things can feel empty. Number four, muted expression. Your physical senses aren't the only things that fade. Emotional exhaustion also changes the way you express yourself, specifically the way you dress. You might, for example, wear really colorful clothing most of the time. You like to let your personality show through your individual style. But emotional exhaustion takes its toll on your clothing because you're constantly feeling stressed, pessimistic, or insecure. So you wear clothing that reflects your mood, like blacks and grays. In other words, if you notice a shift in your style, you may be emotionally exhausted. Number five, changes in humor. Sometimes exhaustion affects your sense of humor. You may normally be the kind of person who cracks jokes, banters with your friends, and laughs all the time. But when you're drained, you're not really in the mood for laughter, and that may leave you feeling off your game. If this were any other day, you'd think of some funny comment to make, maybe a clever pun or a snarky comeback. But for some reason, nothing comes to mind. It's like you forgot how to be funny. Or maybe you're having the opposite problem. You think of dozens of funny things to say, you're just as quick and clever as you used to be, but your jokes don't seem all that funny anymore. Like everything you say sounds stale. So what's the problem? Did you really lose your sense of humor? Of course not. You're just as funny as you used to be, and your sense of humor hasn't changed. The problem is, emotional exhaustion lowers your threshold for happiness. That's why smiling, laughing, and socializing feel a lot less fun. When you're exhausted, it's harder to bond with people. You struggle with conversational rhythms, and you start missing important social cues. My point is, emotional exhaustion keeps you feeling down in the dumps, and it fogs up your sense of humor. So if you're not laughing as much as you used to, you may be emotionally worn down. Number six, missing deadlines. When you're emotionally exhausted, you're not the most reliable person in the world, because things like responsibilities and deadlines tend to slip your mind. This might be extremely out of character for you. You may be the type of employee who never misses a beat and always turns their work in ahead of schedule. But that's because you're on top of your work. You're feeling motivated and productive, so it's much easier to keep your head above water. On the other hand, if you're emotionally exhausted, you may find yourself drowning in your work. You may feel overwhelmed for days or weeks at a time. So little things start slipping through the cracks. You forget about a spreadsheet you were supposed to make, or a meeting you were supposed to go to. They're not much on their own, but over time, these small mistakes add up and really affect your performance. So don't let your slip-ups go unnoticed. If you're suddenly missing deadlines, there's a good chance you're emotionally exhausted. Number 7, explosive reactions. Are you more irritable than ever? Do the smallest things bug you for no reason? It's like all of your patience is just flown out the window. You may be calm and collected most of the time, but now the tiniest inconveniences leave you feeling frustrated and angry. The problem is you're emotionally exhausted, and that exhaustion is draining your patience and turning every tiny delay into a huge problem. All right, let's say, for example, you're waiting in line at the store. You've only been waiting for 5 minutes, yet you feel like screaming at the top of your lungs. Or maybe you're at home browsing on your computer. Normally, if a video takes a few extra seconds to load, you wouldn't care. You'd wait for it to finish, then enjoy the video when it's ready. But this time, every 2-second pause makes you want to explode or crawl back into bed, or both. So why does emotional exhaustion trigger these explosive reactions? Oftentimes, it has nothing to do with the problem itself. Some kind of stress or negativity has been building up for a long time, and it's leaving you on the verge of an outburst. So that small problem is like the straw that breaks the camel's back. You overreact not because you're actually angry, but because all that pent-up frustration is searching for a way out. Number 8, alone time. When was the last time that you had a few days to yourself to relax the way you wanted to? If you can't remember, you're probably feeling emotionally drained. Many people fill their lives to the brim with work, friends, and other social events. They pack their schedules and make plans with everybody, but find themselves feeling tired faster than they expect. Why is that? Because they don't leave any room in their schedule for themselves. They're so focused on their external selves that they start neglecting their internal selves. That's why alone time is so crucial, especially if you want to prevent emotional exhaustion. Think about how sleep recharges your brain after a long day. Solitude does the same thing for your emotions, so make sure you're getting the alone time you need to relax and recover. Number 9, too much work. Has your schedule jumped into overdrive recently? Have you been pouring your heart and soul into a new project? This is very common among people who are emotionally exhausted. They spend nights and weekends mulling over a project without realizing how it's affecting their mentality. Many people try to separate their emotions from their work. The truth is, you can't really have one without the other. We do our best work when we get invested in something, but investing in a project takes a whole lot of effort. In an ideal world, you could give everything you have to every project. You could function at 110% all the time. But that's the reason so many people feel emotionally exhausted. They work too hard for too long, and their brain never catches a break. Number 10, a scattered brain. Do you have a hard time focusing? Are you jumping from task to task or interest to interest? People who are emotionally exhausted struggle to maintain their concentration no matter what they're working on. You could be grinding through busy work, enjoying your favorite passion or project, or just flipping through the channels on your TV. No matter what you're doing, your brain refuses to stay put. So why are you feeling so scatterbrained? Well, emotional exhaustion does a number on your attention. In fact, when your brain is feeling drained, your attention span is at an all-time low. Because a tired brain has trouble controlling or disciplining itself. That's why attention fades so quickly. But here's the most interesting part. When you can't focus on something, your brain tries to compensate. You end up jumping from task to task because your brain is hoping one of them will stick. Now, of course, that rarely ever works. More often than not, you end up running into the same issue over and over again, flipping through dozens of channels until realizing, hey, you didn't want to watch anything in the first place. So pay attention the next time you're having trouble concentrating. If you can't spend more than 15 minutes on something, the problem isn't your work ethic or self-discipline. 9 times out of 10, you're just emotionally exhausted. Hey, thank you for watching Top Think.